The sun was setting over the rolling hills of Southern California, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. Nestled among the lush greenery stood a mansion that seemed almost otherworldly. It wasn't just big, it was enormous, with towering walls, sleek glass windows, and security cameras perched like silent sentinels at every corner. This was Karoline Leavitt's home, a fortress disguised as luxury. Karoline was no ordinary woman. At 42, she had already made a name for herself as one of the brightest minds in technology. Her inventions had revolutionized industries, from self-driving cars to advanced robotics. But what most people didn't know was that her real passion lay in creating things far more secretive, things that could change the world if they ever fell into the wrong hands. Inside the mansion, Karoline sat in her study, sipping tea while reviewing blueprints on a holographic screen. She wore simple clothes, a black turtleneck and jeans, but her sharp eyes and confident posture gave away her intelligence and determination. Beside her stood Sam, a lanky engineer with messy brown hair and glasses perpetually sliding down his nose. He fidgeted nervously as he explained some minor issue with one of the robots. "Don't worry about it," Karoline said calmly, waving him off. "Just make sure everything is ready by tonight. We can't afford any glitches." Sam nodded quickly and scurried out of the room. Karoline leaned back in her chair, letting out a small sigh. She knew something was coming. For weeks now, there had been whispers, rumors spreading through underground networks about her wealth and the treasures hidden within her mansion. Cash, gold, priceless prototypes, all ripe for the taking. Or so they thought. Across the border, in a dimly lit warehouse, in Tijuana, Rafael Morales paced back and forth. He was a man in his late 40s with a scar running down his left cheek and an aura of menace that filled the room. Once a powerful cartel leader, Rafael was now struggling to keep his operation afloat. His rivals were gaining ground, and his funds were drying up. Desperation clung to him like a second skin. Rafael stopped pacing and turned to face his enforcer, Miguel Ortiz. Miguel was younger, mid-30s, with cold eyes and a muscular build. He stood silently, waiting for orders. Behind him were three others. Luis, a wiry man with quick hands. Sofia, a sharp-eyed woman who rarely spoke but always noticed details. And Diego, the muscle of the group, built like a tank. "I've heard about this place," Rafael began, his voice low and gravelly. "Karoline Leavitt's mansion. They say she keeps millions inside, not just money, technology too. Stuff we could sell for top dollar." He paused, looking each of them in the eye. "This is our chance. If we pull this off, we'll have enough to crush our enemies once and for all." Miguel nodded slowly. "It won't be easy. The place is fortified. Cameras, alarms, guards. We'll need to move carefully." Rafael smirked. "That's why I brought you. You're the best. Plan it however you want, but get it done. No mistakes." As the meeting broke up, Miguel gathered the team to go over their strategy. They spent hours poring over satellite images of the mansion, mapping out entry points and escape routes. Sofia suggested cutting the power first, which would disable the cameras temporarily. Luis proposed using silenced weapons to take out any human guards quietly. Diego simply cracked his knuckles, eager for action. Back at the mansion, Karoline called Claire into her study. Claire was in her early 30s with short blonde hair and an air of efficiency. She managed Karoline's day-to-day affairs and acted as her right hand. Unlike Sam, who often seemed jittery, Claire exuded calmness under pressure. "We're going to have company soon," Karoline said without preamble. "I don't know when exactly, but it's only a matter of time." Claire raised an eyebrow. "You think they'll actually try?" "They've been talking about it for weeks. Word travels fast in certain circles. And where there's talk, there's always someone stupid enough to act on it." Karoline tapped a finger against the desk. "Make sure the systems are fully operational. Double-check the protocols. I want everything running smoothly." Claire nodded. "What about Sam? Should I bring him up to speed?" "Yes, but don't let him panic. He tends to do that." Karoline smiled faintly. "And remind him to stay in the bunker during the attack. I don't need him getting hurt." Night fell quickly, blanketing the mansion in darkness. The grounds were eerily quiet, save for the occasional rustle of leaves in the breeze. Inside, Karoline retired to her private quarters, leaving Sam and Claire to monitor the situation from the bunker beneath the mansion. Unbeknownst to them, the cartel was already on the move. Dressed in black tactical gear and armed to the teeth, they approached the mansion cautiously. Sophia led the way, scanning the perimeter for weaknesses. When she found a blind spot near the eastern wall, she signaled for the others to follow. Using specialized tools, they disabled the outer fence sensors and slipped onto the property undetected. Everything seemed to be going according to plan. Too well, in fact. As they reached the main gate, Miguel hesitated for a moment, feeling a twinge of unease. But before he could voice his concerns, Luis triggered the mechanism to open the gate. The doors swung open silently, revealing a long driveway leading up to the mansion. The group exchanged glances, their confidence bolstered by how easy it had been so far. Little did they know they were walking straight into a trap, one designed not just to stop intruders, but to teach them a lesson they wouldn't forget. Deep. Below the surface, Karoline watched the feed from dozens of hidden cameras. A faint smile played on her lips as she observed the invaders making their way toward the house. She pressed a button on her console, activating the first line of defense. "Let's see what they're made of," she murmured to herself, settling, back to watch the chaos unfold. Above ground, the cartel members froze as strange noises echoed around them. At first it sounded like distant footsteps, but then shadows moved across the driveway, humanoid figures emerging from the darkness. Their movements were unnervingly smooth, almost mechanical. Before anyone could react, the figures lunged forward, surrounding the group. "What the hell are these things?" Diego shouted, raising his weapon. But before he could fire, one of the figures grabbed him, twisting his arm until the gun clattered to the ground. Panic erupted as the rest of the team realized they weren't dealing with ordinary guards. These creatures were faster, stronger, and utterly relentless. Miguel barked orders, trying to rally his team, but it was clear they were outmatched. One by one, the invaders were subdued, dragged away by the mechanical monsters. Back in the bunker, Sam flinched at the sight of the carnage unfolding on the screens. Is this really necessary?" he stammered, turning to Karoline. She didn't answer immediately, her gaze fixed on the monitors. Finally, she spoke, her tone measured and calm. "They chose to come here, to threaten me, to steal what doesn't belong to them. This isn't just about protecting my property, it's about sending a message. Nobody crosses me and gets away with it." Claire placed a reassuring hand on Sam's shoulder. "It's better this way," she said softly. "Trust me." Outside, the last of the cartel members scrambled to escape, but the mansion seemed alive, shifting and changing to block their path. Trapped and terrified, they could only wait for whatever came next. And deep within the heart of the estate, Karoline prepared to deliver her final blow, a demonstration of power that would leave no doubt about who truly ruled this domain. The air was thick with tension, as the cartel members found themselves surrounded by the strange mechanical figures. Each robot moved with eerie precision, its glowing eyes scanning the intruders like predators sizing up their prey. Miguel gritted, his teeth trying to stay calm despite the chaos erupting around him. He had seen many things in his life, gunfights, betrayals, even death, but this was something entirely different. These weren't human guards. They were machines, cold and unrelenting. "Fall back!" Miguel shouted, waving his team toward the gate. "We need to get out of here!" But it was too late. The robots closed in, forming a tight circle around the group. One of them lunged at Diego, grabbing him by the arm and twisting it until he screamed in pain. Another kicked Luis hard in the chest, sending him sprawling to the ground. Sophia fired, her weapon instinctively, but the bullets ricocheted harmlessly off the robot's metallic frame. Her eyes widened in disbelief. "What are these things?" she hissed, backing away slowly. Miguel didn't answer. His mind raced, trying to come up with a plan. They had prepared for armed guards, dogs, maybe even booby traps, but not this. not machines that seemed almost alive. He glanced at the mansion looming ahead, its windows dark and silent. Whoever lived here wasn't just rich, they were dangerous. Inside the bunker, Karoline watched the scene unfold on multiple screens. She leaned forward slightly, her expression unreadable. Beside her, Sam fidgeted nervously, while Claire typed commands into a keyboard, adjusting the robot's behavior in real time. They're panicking, Claire observed coolly. Just like you predicted. Karoline nodded, her lips curling into a faint smile. Good. Let them panic. It'll make the next part easier. Sam swallowed hard, watching as one of the robots slammed a cartel member against the wall. Do you think we should stop them? I mean, isn't this enough? Karoline turned to him, her gaze sharp. Enough? No, Sam. This isn't about punishing them, it's about making sure no one else tries this again. If they walk away now, they'll only come back stronger. We need to finish this. Sam fell silent, knowing better than to argue. He trusted Karoline's judgment, even if it made him uncomfortable. Still, he couldn't shake the feeling that they were crossing a line he wasn't sure they could come back from. Above ground, the remaining cartel members regrouped near the driveway. Only 4 of them were left standing: Miguel, Sofia, Luis, and another man named Carlos. Their weapons lay scattered on the ground, useless against the robots. Panic bubbled beneath the surface, threatening to overwhelm them. We can't fight these things, Carlos muttered, clutching his injured arm. They're not human. Shut up, Miguel snapped, scanning their surroundings desperately. There has to be a way out. There's always a weak spot. Sofia crouched low, her sharp eyes darting between the robots and the mansion. Maybe we can use the house itself. If we can get inside, we might find a way to shut them down. Luis shook his head. Are you crazy? That place is probably crawling with more of those things. I don't see any other option, Sofia shot back, unless you want to stay here and wait for them to tear us apart. Miguel hesitated, weighing their chances. Finally, he nodded. Fine, but we stick together. If anyone falls behind, they're on their own. With that, the group made a break for the mansion, dodging the robots as best they could. The machines pursued them relentlessly, their movements fluid and calculated. Every step felt like a gamble, every breath a risk. Despite their fear, the cartel managed to reach the front door, which stood slightly ajar. Pushing it open, they slipped inside and slammed it shut behind them. For a moment, there was silence. The cool interior of the mansion offered a brief reprieve from the chaos outside. But the relief was short-lived. As they caught their breath, they realized they weren't alone. More robots patrolled the halls, their glowing eyes casting an ominous glow in the dim light. This place is a death trap, Luis whispered, his voice trembling. Miguel ignored him, focusing instead on finding a way deeper into the mansion. He motioned for the others to follow him, keeping his footsteps light to avoid drawing attention. The group moved cautiously, sticking to the shadows as much as possible. Every corner they turned revealed new dangers: locked doors, shifting walls, and surveillance cameras that seemed to track their every move. Back in the bunker, Karoline monitored their progress with detached interest. She sipped her tea, occasionally giving instructions to Claire, who adjusted the mansion's defenses accordingly. They're heading toward the east wing, Claire reported, glancing at the monitors. Should I activate the turrets? Not yet, Karoline replied smoothly. Let them wander a little longer. The confusion will wear them down. Sam shifted uncomfortably in his seat. How long are we going to keep this up? They're already scared, isn't that enough? Karoline raised an eyebrow. Scared people are unpredictable. Desperate people are dangerous. We need to eliminate both emotions before we can end this. Her words sent a chill down Sam's spine. He knew she was right, logically at least, but it still felt wrong. These were human beings, after all, not lab rats to be experimented on. Yet he said nothing, knowing that arguing would only make things worse. Meanwhile, the cartel members stumbled upon a room filled with strange equipment. Rows of computers lined the walls, humming softly. In the center of the room stood what looked like a large glass tank, filled with a glowing blue liquid. Suspended within the liquid was something humanoid, though distorted and incomplete. Tubes and wires connected it to various machines, pulsing rhythmically. "What is this place?" Carlos murmured, his voice tinged with awe. "It's some kind of lab," Sophia replied, examining the setup closely. "Look at this stuff, it's like nothing I've ever seen." Luis frowned, backing away from the tank. "This feels wrong, like we're not supposed to be here." Before anyone could respond, the lights flickered and went out, plunging the room into darkness. A low hum filled the air, growing louder with each passing second. Then, without warning, the robots burst into the room, their glowing eyes cutting through the blackness like searchlights. "Run!" Miguel shouted, pushing past the others. The group scrambled to escape, but the robots were faster. One of them grabbed Carlos by the leg, dragging him backward. He screamed, clawing at the floor, as the machine hauled him away. The others barely had time to react before another robot pinned Luis against the wall, squeezing until he passed out. Only Miguel and Sophia remained, running blindly through the twisting corridors. Their lungs burned, their legs ached, but they didn't dare stop. Behind them, the sound of metal feet echoed ominously, closing the distance with terrifying speed. Finally, they reached a set of stairs leading downward. Without hesitation, they descended, hoping to find refuge in the lower levels of the mansion. What they found instead was a massive steel door marked with a single word: bunker. Miguel hesitated, staring at the door. "Do we go in?" Sophia shook her head. "It's probably locked, and even if it's not, whoever's inside will kill us on sight." Before they could decide, the robots appeared at the top of the stairs, blocking their retreat. Trapped between the machines and the mysterious door, Miguel and Sophia exchanged a glance. They both knew there was no way out, not unless they took a chance. Taking a deep breath, Miguel stepped forward and pressed his hand against the scanner beside the door. To their surprise, it slid open with a soft hiss, revealing a brightly lit chamber beyond. Inside, they saw two people, a young man with glasses and a blonde woman typing furiously on a keyboard. On a large screen behind them, a woman with piercing eyes watched calmly. Karoline smiled faintly. "Welcome to my home," she said, her voice dripping with mockery. "I hope you've enjoyed your tour." Miguel clenched his fists, glaring at her. "Who are you? What do you want from us?" Karoline tilted her head, studying him as if he were an insect under a microscope. "What I want is simple, for you to understand that you've made a grave mistake. You came here thinking you could take what's mine. Now you know the truth, you never stood a chance." Sophia stepped forward, her voice steady despite the fear in her eyes. "We surrender, please just let us go." Karoline's smile faded, replaced by an icy glare. "Surrender? After everything you've done?" "No, Sophia. Actions have consequences, and yours are far from over." With that, she nodded to Claire, who tapped a few keys on the console. The robots entered the bunker surrounding Miguel and Sophia. The two intruders froze, realizing they had nowhere left to run. Deep below the mansion, the battle had reached its climax. For Karoline, it was more than just defending her property, it was proving a point. To the world, to herself, and most importantly to anyone foolish enough to challenge her. The cartel had walked into her domain, and now they would learn the price of their arrogance. The steel door slid shut behind Miguel and Sophia, sealing them inside the bunker with Karoline and her team. The room was cold and sterile, illuminated by harsh fluorescent lights that reflected off the polished floor. The robots loomed over, the two intruders, their glowing eyes unblinking and mechanical limbs twitching slightly as if ready to strike at any moment. Miguel clenched his fists, trying to appear brave despite the fear gnawing at him. Sophia stood beside him, her sharp eyes darting between the robots, Karoline, and the screens displaying live footage of the mansion's security system. She knew they were trapped, but she refused to give up hope just yet. Karoline leaned back in her chair, watching them with a calm detachment that was almost unnerving. Her voice was soft, but carried an edge of authority when she finally spoke. "You've caused quite a mess tonight. My home is damaged, my peace disturbed, and my creations have been forced to deal with your intrusion." Sophia swallowed hard before replying. "We didn't mean to hurt anyone. We were just following orders. If you let us go now, we'll leave quietly. You won't see us again." Karoline tilted her head, studying Sophia like a scientist observing a lab rat. "Orders? From Rafael Morales, I assume?" When Sophia didn't answer, Karoline continued. "I know all about him. Desperate men do desperate things, but desperation doesn't excuse stupidity." Sam shifted uncomfortably in the corner, avoiding eye contact with the intruders. He glanced at Claire, who remained focused on her keyboard, typing commands to keep the robots alert and ready for action. Despite his unease, Sam stayed quiet, knowing better than to interrupt Karoline. Miguel took a step forward, his voice trembling, but defiant. "What do you want from us? Are you going to kill us? Torture us?" Karoline chuckled softly, a sound that sent chills down everyone's spines. "Kill you? No, that would be too easy. And torture?" She paused, leaning forward, slightly. "That's not my style. What I want is for you to understand why you failed, why you never stood a chance." She gestured toward one of the screens, which displayed a map of the mansion overlaid with glowing red dots representing the robots' positions. "This estate isn't just a home, it's a fortress. Every wall, every door, every inch of this place is designed to protect what's mine. You walked into a trap the moment you stepped onto my property." Sophia frowned, glancing at the screen. "So it wasn't just luck. All those traps, the robots, they're yours?" "Of course," Karoline replied matter-of-factly. "I built them myself. Years of research, countless prototypes, endless testing, all leading up to tonight. And you thought you could break in with guns and brute force? How naive." Miguel gritted his teeth, anger bubbling beneath his fear. "Fine. You've made your point. You're smarter than us, stronger, whatever, so what happens now?" Karoline smiled faintly, her expression unreadable. Now we finish what you started." Before either Miguel or Sophia could react, the ground beneath them began to tremble. A low hum filled the air, growing louder with each passing second. The walls of the bunker seemed to shift, panels sliding open to reveal hidden compartments filled with more advanced machinery. From one of these compartments emerged something massive, a towering biomechanical suit piloted by none other than Sam. The sight of the suit sent shockwaves through the small room. It stood nearly 12 feet tall, its metallic frame gleaming under the bright lights. Thick cables snaked along its arms and legs, pulsing with energy. Its head resembled a sleek helmet with glowing blue visors where eyes should be. The suit moved with surprising grace, taking a single step forward that echoed like thunder. Miguel stared at the monstrosity, his jaw dropping in disbelief. What is that thing?" "That," Karoline said proudly, "is my masterpiece. Meet Apex, a fusion of human ingenuity and machine precision." She turned to Sam, who looked visibly nervous inside the cockpit. "Show them what you're capable of." Sam hesitated for a moment, then nodded. With a flick of his fingers, on the controls the suit raised one massive arm, pointing it directly at Miguel and Sophia. The tip of its finger opened up, revealing a glowing barrel that hummed ominously. "No," Sophia shouted, raising her hands defensively. "Please, don't do this." Miguel stepped in front of her protectively, his face pale but determined. "If you're going to kill us, fine, but don't drag it out." Karoline sighed, shaking her head. "I told you I'm not here to kill you. This is about teaching a lesson. Apex isn't designed to destroy indiscriminately. It's designed to incapacitate, to neutralize threats without unnecessary bloodshed." As if to prove her point, the suit fired a single shot. A beam of light shot out from its fingertip, striking the floor inches away from Miguel's feet. The impact sent a shockwave rippling through the room, knocking both intruders off balance. They fell to the ground, dazed but unharmed. "This is your last warning," Karoline said firmly. "Leave now and tell Rafael Morales exactly what happened here. Tell him, and anyone else foolish enough to try, that my home is not to be trifled with." Sophia scrambled to her feet, pulling Miguel up with her. She nodded quickly, her voice shaking. "We'll leave right now, just please, you don't hurt us anymore." Karoline waved a hand dismissively. "Go, but remember, this isn't over." "Not until I say it is." The robots parted to allow the two intruders to exit the bunker. Once they were gone, Karoline turned to Claire and Sam, her expression softening slightly. "Well done, both of you." Sam climbed out of the suit, wiping sweat from his brow. "Was that really necessary? Scaring them like that?" "It was more than necessary," Karoline replied. "Fear is a powerful motivator. They won't forget this night anytime soon." Claire nodded in agreement. "And even if they do, the authorities will hear about it soon enough. Thanks to the cameras, we have all the evidence we need to make sure Rafael Morales pays for this." Karoline stood up, stretching her arms above her head. "Good. Let's clean up the mess and get some rest. Tomorrow we'll assess the damage and start repairing what needs to be fixed." As the trio left the bunker, the mansion returned to its usual state of eerie silence. Outside, Miguel and Sophia stumbled across the grounds, their hearts pounding as they fled into the darkness. Neither spoke. They simply ran, driven by sheer terror and the overwhelming desire to survive. Later that night, as the first rays of dawn broke over the horizon, Karoline stood on her balcony gazing out at the sprawling estate. The battle had ended. But the war, her personal crusade against those who sought to exploit or harm her, was far from over. She sipped her tea slowly, her mind already turning to future plans. Somewhere deep within the mansion, the robots powered down, returning to their charging stations. Apex stood motionless in its compartment, awaiting its next command. And in the bunker, the monitors displayed a single message flashing repeatedly: "Threat neutralized." Karoline smiled faintly, setting her teacup aside. For now, peace had been restored, but she knew better than to let her guard down. In a world full of greed and ambition, safety was an illusion, one she had worked tirelessly to create and maintain, and she would stop at nothing to ensure it lasted. The morning sun rose over the hills, casting golden light across Karoline Leavitt's estate. The mansion stood as it always had, silent, imposing, and seemingly untouched by the chaos of the previous night. But appearances could be deceiving. Inside, the remnants of the battle lingered in subtle ways. Scorch marks on the walls, broken glass scattered across the floors, and faint traces of smoke still lingering in the air. Karoline sat in her study, reviewing footage from the security cameras. She watched the intruders flee into the distance, their figures shrinking against the vast expanse of her property. Her expression remained calm, almost serene, as if she were observing a routine event rather than the aftermath of an attempted raid. Beside her, Claire typed away on her laptop, organizing reports and compiling evidence for the authorities. "They're gone," Claire said finally, glancing up from her screen. "And they won't be coming back anytime soon." Karoline nodded slowly, setting down her teacup. "Good. Let them spread the word. Anyone who hears about this will think twice before crossing me." Sam entered the room quietly, carrying a clipboard filled with notes. His face was pale, his hands trembling slightly as he approached Karoline. "I've finished the damage assessment. Most of the repairs can be done within a week. A few robots need maintenance, but nothing major." Karoline gave him a small smile. "You did well last night, Sam. Apex performed exactly as expected." Sam shifted uncomfortably, avoiding her gaze. "Thanks, but do you really think this is over? What if they come back with more people? Or worse?" "They won't," Karoline replied firmly. "Fear is a powerful deterrent. They saw what we're capable of. If anything, Rafael Morales will focus on keeping his own operation together instead of trying to attack us again." Claire chimed in, her tone practical and reassuring. "Besides, we have all the evidence we need. Once the authorities get involved, Morales will have bigger problems than revenge." Karoline leaned back in her chair, her sharp eyes narrowing slightly. "Speaking of which, I want you to prepare a detailed report for the police. Include everything: The breach, the intruders, and how we neutralize the threat. Leave no room for doubt. Claire nodded and returned to her laptop, her fingers flying across the keyboard. Sam hesitated for a moment, then spoke up. What about Miguel and Sophia? Do you think they'll talk? They'll talk, Karoline said confidently. People like them always do when they're scared enough. And trust me, they're terrified. Meanwhile, miles away, Miguel and Sophia stumbled through the dense underbrush, their clothes torn and their bodies bruised. They had run blindly through the night, putting as much distance between themselves and the mansion as possible. Now exhausted and shaken, they collapsed beneath the shade of a tree, gasping for breath. Sophia hugged her knees to her chest, her sharp eyes clouded with fear. That place, those machines, it's not normal. Nobody should have that kind of power. Miguel rubbed his temples, trying to clear his thoughts. Power doesn't matter. What matters is that we failed. We walked into a trap and now Raphael's going to blame us. We didn't know, Sophia snapped, her voice rising. How could we have known she had robots like that? That suit, it looked like something out of a nightmare. Miguel sighed, running a hand through his disheveled hair. It doesn't matter what we knew or didn't know. All that matters is that we're alive. For now. They sat in silence for a while, listening to the distant chirping of birds and the rustling of leaves. The weight of their failure pressed heavily on them, but neither dared to speak of it. Finally, Sophia broke the silence. What do we do now? Miguel shrugged. We go back. Tell Raphael what happened. Maybe if we give him enough details, he'll let us live. And if he doesn't? Sophia asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Miguel didn't answer. He stared at the ground, his mind racing with possibilities. Neither option seemed appealing. Face Raphael's wrath or try to disappear completely. Either way, their lives would never be the same. Back at the mansion, Karoline decided to take a walk around the grounds. She needed fresh air after spending hours reviewing security footage and strategizing with Claire and Sam. As she strolled along the manicured pathways, her thoughts drifted to the events of the previous night. She felt a strange mix of satisfaction and unease. Satisfaction, because she had proven her strength and protected her home. Unease because she knew the world outside her walls was still dangerous, a constant reminder that her work was never truly done. She paused near the eastern wall where the cartel had breached the perimeter. The damage was minimal, but it served as a stark reminder of how close they had come to succeeding. Kneeling down, she examined the spot where the fence sensors had been disabled. Her lips curled into a faint smile. You're getting better, she murmured to herself. But so am I. As she stood up, she noticed movement out of the corner of her eye. One of her smaller surveillance drones hovered nearby, its camera lens trained on her. She waved at it dismissively, and it zipped away, disappearing into the sky. Despite her confidence, Karoline couldn't shake the feeling that something was missing, that there was still a loose thread waiting to unravel. Later that afternoon, the authorities arrived. A convoy of black SUVs pulled up to the mansion, followed by a team of officers in tactical gear. Karoline greeted them calmly, offering them access to her security footage and answering their questions with practiced ease. Detective Laura Hayes, a middle-aged woman with sharp features and an even sharper mind, led the investigation. She listened intently as Karoline explained the situation, occasionally jotting down notes in her notebook. So you're saying these intruders were part of a larger criminal organization? Hayes asked, raising an eyebrow. Yes, Karoline replied smoothly. Rafael Morales. He runs one of the most dangerous cartels in Mexico. I believe he orchestrated this attack in an attempt to steal my technology. Hayes nodded thoughtfully. And your defenses? Those robots and the suit you mentioned? All part of my research, Karoline said without hesitation. I develop advanced robotics for various applications, including security. Last night proved their effectiveness. Hayes studied her for a moment, then smiled faintly. Impressive. You've certainly set a new standard for home protection. Karoline returned the smile, her expression unreadable. Thank you. Only wish I hadn't needed to use them. As the officers began their investigation, Karoline retreated to her study once more. She poured herself another cup of tea and settled into her chair, watching the activity unfold on her monitors. Everything was proceeding according to plan. The intruders had been neutralized, the authorities were involved, and Rafael Morales' name was already making headlines. Yet despite the apparent victory, Karoline couldn't fully relax. She opened a drawer in her desk and pulled out a folder marked Project Apex. Flipping through its contents, she stopped at a page detailing future upgrades for the biomechanical suit. Her eyes narrowed slightly as she considered the possibilities. There's always room for improvement, she muttered to herself. Down in the bunker, Sam and Claire worked tirelessly to repair the damaged robots and recalibrate the mansion's defenses. Sam glanced at Claire, his brow furrowed with concern. Do you think we went too far last night? I mean, those people, they were just following orders. Claire paused, turning to look at him. Maybe. But Karoline's right. People like Rafael Morales don't stop unless you make them. This isn't just about protecting ourselves, it's about sending a message. Sam frowned, unconvinced. A message that says what? That we're untouchable? Invincible? Exactly, Claire replied, her tone firm. If we want to keep doing what we're doing, if we want to change the world, we can't afford to show weakness, not even once. Sam fell silent, knowing there was truth in her words. Still, he couldn't shake the image of Miguel and Sofia fleeing into the night, their faces etched with terror. It weighed on him, a quiet reminder of the cost of their success. As the day drew to a close, Karoline stood on her balcony once more, gazing out at the horizon. The sun dipped below the hills, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple. She sipped her tea slowly, her mind already turning to the future. There would be challenges ahead, new threats, new enemies. But she was ready. She had built her fortress, forged her weapons, and proven her strength. In the distance, the faint hum of machinery echoed through the air, a reminder that her guardians were always watching, always prepared. Karoline smiled faintly, setting her teacup aside. Whatever came next, she would face it head-on. After all, she had spent years preparing for moments like these, and she wasn't about to let anyone or anything stand in her way. For now, peace had been restored. But in Karoline's world, peace was fleeting. It was a fragile illusion, maintained only through constant vigilance and unwavering determination. And she had no intention of letting her guard down. Not now. Not ever. The days following the raid passed quickly, though they felt like an eternity to Karoline. The authorities had taken control of the investigation, combing through every detail of the attack. Rafael Morales' name was splashed across news headlines, his reputation crumbling under the weight of evidence linking him to the attempted break-in. Miguel and Sofia, the two surviving intruders, were picked up by local law enforcement within hours of fleeing the mansion. Exhausted and terrified, they spilled everything they knew about the cartel's operations in exchange for leniency. Karoline watched it all unfold from her study, sipping tea as she scrolled through updates on her tablet. The media painted her as a victim, a brilliant woman who had been targeted by ruthless criminals. Few questioned the advanced technology or the mysterious robots that had defended her home. To the public, it was simply another story of wealth, meeting danger, with justice prevailing in the end. But Karoline knew better. She understood the deeper implications of what had happened, and the message it sent to anyone who dared to challenge her. In the bunker below, Sam and Claire worked tirelessly to restore order. Robots were repaired, security systems recalibrated, and damaged sections of the mansion rebuilt. Yet, despite their progress, neither could shake the lingering unease that hung over them. Sam, in particular, struggled to reconcile his role in the events of that night. He had always seen himself as a builder, someone who created tools to improve lives. Now he couldn't help but wonder if his inventions were becoming something darker. Weapons meant not just to protect, but to intimidate and destroy. "Do you think we did the right thing?" Sam asked one evening, his voice barely above a whisper. He sat on a stool in the corner of the workshop, watching Claire solder circuits into one of the smaller drones. Claire paused, glancing at him over her shoulder. What do you mean? I mean, using Apex like that, scaring those people half to death. Was it really necessary? Claire sighed, setting down her tools. Sam, I know it bothers you. It bothers me too sometimes, but you can't lose sight of the bigger picture. If we hadn't stopped them, they would have kept coming back. Or worse, someone else would have tried. But at what cost? Sam pressed, his tone growing more urgent. We're supposed to be making the world better, not turning it into some kind of war zone. Claire hesitated, then nodded slowly. You're right, this isn't easy. But remember why we started this. Karoline doesn't just build things for fun, she builds them because she believes in a future where technology protects humanity, not the other way around. Sam looked away, his jaw tightening. I just hope we don't lose ourselves along the way. Meanwhile, in a cramped safe house on the outskirts of Tijuana, Rafael Morales paced furiously. His once mighty cartel was unraveling before his eyes, its members arrested or fleeing for their lives. The raid on Karoline's mansion had been his last-ditch effort to secure funding and regain control, but it had ended in disaster. Miguel and Sofia's testimony had exposed his operation to the authorities, leaving him with few options and even fewer allies. Rafael slammed his fist against the wall, cursing under his breath. That woman, he growled, his scarred face contorted with rage. She ruined everything. Diego, the only member of the raid team who had managed to escape capture, sat slumped in a chair, nursing a swollen arm. It wasn't just her, he muttered. It was those machines, those damn machines. They weren't human. They were worse than human, Rafael snapped, spinning around to face him. And now everyone knows about them. Everyone knows what happened. My name is Mud, Diego, Mud. Diego shrugged weakly, clearly defeated. Maybe it's time to lay low. Start fresh somewhere else. No, Rafael barked, his voice echoing through the room. I'm not running. Not until I settle this score. He stormed out of the safe house, leaving Diego alone with his thoughts. Outside, the streets buzzed with activity, oblivious to the storm brewing inside Rafael's mind. He knew retaliation wouldn't be easy, not after the beating he'd taken, but he refused to let Karoline Leavitt get the last laugh. Revenge burned in his chest like a fire, consuming every ounce of reason he had left. Back at the mansion, life began to return to normal, or as close to normal as it ever got. Karoline spent her days reviewing new projects, brainstorming ways to enhance her creations. She had already begun sketching designs for upgrades to Apex, envisioning a version capable of even greater feats. Her ambition was boundless, her determination unmatched. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Karoline invited Sam and Claire to join her on the balcony. They stood together, gazing out at the sprawling estate bathed in golden light. For a moment, there was silence, broken only by the distant hum of machinery. You've both done incredible work, Karoline said finally, her voice soft but steady. Last week proved that we're ready for anything, but it also showed us how much farther we need to go. Sam glanced at her, his expression hesitant. What do you mean? We can't afford to rest, Karoline explained. The world is changing, and so are its threats. We have to stay ahead. That means pushing boundaries, taking risks, even if it scares us. Claire nodded, her loyalty unwavering. Whatever you need, we'll make it happen. Sam hesitated, then forced a small smile. Yeah, whatever it takes. Karoline placed a hand on each of their shoulders, her gaze firm, yet reassuring. I know this hasn't been easy. None of us signed up for this kind of life. But remember why we're here. We're building something extraordinary, something that could change the world for the better. As the three of them stood together, the weight of their shared mission settled over them like a cloak. They knew the road ahead would be fraught with challenges, sacrifices, and moral dilemmas. But they also knew they couldn't turn back. Not now. Not after everything they had accomplished. Later that night, as the mansion fell silent, Karoline returned to her study, She poured herself a glass of wine and settled into her chair, staring out at the stars twinkling in the sky. Her mind wandered to the possibilities stretching out before her, new inventions, new alliances, new battles to fight. She felt a thrill of excitement mixed with a pang of uncertainty. For all her confidence, Karoline couldn't deny the toll this life had taken on her. She had sacrificed relationships, privacy, and peace of mind in pursuit of her vision. And yet she wouldn't trade it for anything. The world needed people like her. People willing to push limits, challenge norms, and stand firm in the face of adversity. On one of her monitors, a live feed showed Apex standing motionless in its charging station. Its glowing visors reflected faintly in the dim light, a silent guardian waiting for its next command. Karoline smiled faintly, raising her glass in a quiet toast. "To the future," she murmured softly. "Whatever it may bring." Outside, the wind rustled through the trees, carrying with it the promise of tomorrow. In the distance, the faint hum of machinery continued, a reminder that Karoline's fortress was never truly asleep. It was always watching, always prepared. And so was she. For now, the immediate threat had passed. The cartel had been neutralized, its leader reduced to nothing more than a shadow of his former self. But Karoline knew better than to believe this was the end. There would always be others, greedy, desperate, or power-hungry, who would see her wealth and creations as targets. And when they came, she would be ready. As she turned off the lights and headed to bed, Karoline allowed herself a rare moment of reflection. She thought about the choices she had made, the lines she had crossed, and the legacy she hoped to leave behind. It wasn't a perfect path, nor an easy one. But it was hers, and she wouldn't have it any other way. The mansion fell silent once more, its secrets locked away behind reinforced walls and impenetrable defenses. Somewhere deep within, the machines powered down, awaiting their next awakening. And high above, the stars shone brightly, indifferent to the drama unfolding below. Tomorrow would come, as it always did. And when it did, Karoline Leavitt would greet it with open eyes and an unshakable resolve.